If you're looking for the perfect date night or just a reason to dress up and head to the theater, well, listen up because we have two reasons. Mariana McClellan and Barbara Wengert are here to tell you why you need to see A Doll's House and A Doll's House Part 2. Both happening at the same time, which we're going to talk about in a second. But Mariana, let's talk about what A Doll's House is.
A Doll's House. It was written in 1879 by a Norwegian playwright, Henrik Ibsen. And A Doll's House centers around Nora Helmer, who is wants to be the perfect wife and mother.
Okay.
She's in what she thinks is the perfect marriage, and her husband's about to get promotion, get a lot more money, everything's going really great, and then what emerges is that she has been sitting on a secret for most of their marriage, and when certain things come to light and her efforts to conceal this, she discovers she's not in the relationship she thought she was. She doesn't know who her husband is, she doesn't know who she is. She gets courage, and she learns what her voice is and what her legs are, and she walks out of the,
My
out of the
goodness.
house.
Wow,
Yeah.
that was a lot.
Yeah, oh, it's a lot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No, Barbara, okay, A Doll's House Part 2. What's this one about?
The Doll's House Part 2 was written 140 years later.
Oh my
It
goodness.
was written just a few years ago by Lucas Snaith, and the conceit is 15 years have passed, and there was a lot of conjecture when Doll's House was written. For those 140 years, people thought, what happened to Nora?
Okay.
And Lucas Snaith answers that question. So Nora has to come back to the house that she walked out of, and she has something that she needs from her family that she left, and so we see who she has become, what her life has been for the past 15 years, and she gets to have some conversations that everyone has been waiting to have for 15 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you play Nora.
Yes.
Okay, so you're playing the same role but in different productions. Okay, and so how does that work?
Well, the two productions rehearsed, there was definitely, we were in the same space, and some of us are in both productions, so we were very familiar with what was happening in the other play. But in terms of creating the character, she changes so much in that 15 years. She is a different person down to her bones. So I think that was part of the idea behind casting two separate women, is that she completely reinvents herself. There's overlap in terms of storytelling, but how we each created our characters. We were creating two women who share the same name but are sort of intrinsically very different people.
Yeah, so then the approach to really that character is very different in both.
And I think stylistically the plays are very different.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with the way that we went about creating the characters.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. All right, so this is the first time that these productions are being produced at the same time, which is really interesting. So can you explain what repertory is, and how do you accomplish running the show at the same time with the same cast?
Yes, good question.
Yeah.
Well, Barb is in both shows, and both shows have some of the same cast, same design team. We rehearse at the same time and actually perform in the same theater, so on alternating nights. So that's kind of what a rep schedule is like, a repertory schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you want to add anything to that? It looked like you were going to say
No,
something.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about costumes. Now, the show moves through time and period, and the costumes really have to match that. That has to be interesting
Oh, yes.
to see that transformation.
Well, Nora begins in kind of the ideal modern dress of a woman of that time. The costumes are beautiful and designed by Megan Anderson Doyle, and she does a great job of, over the course of the 15 years that Nora evolves and changes. And part 2, she's a very different woman.
Yeah, and as Mariana mentioned, the plays are very stylistically different. The language in part 2 is very contemporary. It's a bit heightened. It's a bit more theatrical in a lot of ways than the original production. Ibsen was sort of the father of modern realistic theater, and we are really honoring that in that production. Second production is a bit more, just a bit flashier, and I think that's reflected in the clothes. They're a bit brighter, and there's a few elements that are somewhat contemporary.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It sounds wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing with us. Get everybody out to see it. These are two shows you really cannot miss. Get your tickets now through November 24th at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. Experience the A Doll's House and A Doll's House Part 2 for the first time in repertory. Tickets are still available at denvercenter.org.